Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is the 15th of November, 2022. Click on the subscribe button down here in the lower right to subscribe, and also that notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when future episodes are released. If you click on that notification bell, your family will be secure, safe from natural disasters for the next year. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, you don't have to worry about them. Click on that notification bell. Also, as mentioned before, we are in a cultural war to protect Southern heritage and Confederate icons. All street names, all statues will be torn down if we don't win this cultural battle. To help do that, your grandchildren and your children are going to ask you, Dad, Mom, Granddad, Grandma, what did you do during the cultural wars to protect Southern heritage? Well, one thing you can do is buy some of my books. Consider this one, The Confederacy at Flood Tide. This tells the story of when the Confederacy came closest to winning its independence, and from June of 62 to December of 62. The Confederacy at Flood Tide. You can get it for $26 at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all bookstores, but you can also buy an autographed copy directly from me. Email me, Phil, Phil _ Lee, Leigh at me.com. Okay, our talk today is about Biden bribed youthful voters. As explained in my post and video last week, President Biden bribed the youth vote in August when he forgave up to $20,000 per household of student loan debt for households having annual incomes of up to $250,000. In less than 3 months, 26 million voters applied for relief, which is almost 4 times larger than Biden's popular vote margin over Trump in the 2020 presidential elections. Moreover, he particularly concentrated his bribery on young blacks by providing twice the standard $10,000 forgiveness limit to Pell Grant recipients who are 58% black, even though blacks compose only 14% of America's population. The bribe worked. According to CNN, voters aged 29 and under voted almost 2-to-1 in favor of the Democrats. That means almost twice as many voted for Democrats as Republicans. My post and video last week showed that the Republicans of the post-Ferrum era used generous Union veterans pensions to similarly control the vote, to elect representatives who would promote Northern interests over Southern ones into the 20th century, more than 40 years after the war had ended. The chief example was the protective tariff. As explained in earlier posts and videos, protective tariffs were doubly injurious to the South. Not only did they increase prices for all Americans, they also reduced export demand for farm commodities, most notably cotton. They shrank export demand by making it costly for overseas cotton buyers to generate the exchange credits, which they would do by imports of manufactured goods into the United States. By making it difficult for them to generate the exchange credits in that way, they couldn't get the money they needed as readily to pay for cotton. They needed to import without barriers in order to get the money they needed to pay for the cotton. Since the barriers were there, they had to reduce the amount they could pay for the cotton. That was injurious to the South, uniquely. Well, not uniquely, because other farm commodities were affected, but the Union veterans pensions led many of the northern states to vote against the interest of their own farmers who were producing export commodities such as wheat. And here's the facts. After starting at 19% in 1860, protective tariffs averaged 45% for the next half century, 50 years thereafter, and declined only when the Union veterans vote began sharply dropping due to the mortality tables. The purpose of my comparing the bribery of Union veterans pensions to student loan forgiveness, or Biden student loan forgiveness, was to warn readers and viewers that these kinds of bribes can last decades, and they can have decades of effect on the elections in the United States. They start small but grow relentlessly. Qualifying standards for union veterans pensions eventually became so generous that the last one was paid in May of 2020. I will repeat that. The last union veterans monthly payment was made in May of 2020, the very year that Joe Biden was elected president. Most egregiously, Biden's bribery was done by an unconstitutional executive order, whereas the union veterans pensions were generally the result of bills passed through Congress in the constitutional manner. Even the Democrats, today's Democrats, should be frightened by Biden's precedent, because if followed in the future, then a Republican president might use executive action to impose a bribe favoring her party. Consequently, I cannot understand why my video and post yesterday got more than 10 times the viewership of the one I did last week on Biden's bribery. This should be foremost in our minds. All of us should be contacting our representatives, our elected representatives, to explain that Biden's student loan forgiveness is a reprehensible bribe to a select group of voters and the usurpation of powers reserved for Congress. Okay, that is how I really feel about this. I cannot understand why yesterday's post, which was I appreciate the viewership, why it got more than 10 times of what I wrote about Biden's bribery. I cannot understand that. But the why questions are always the hardest to answer, as Peter Thiel said. Anyway, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.